Hello, welcome back to Infinite Roleplay, and I'm going to be talking about masking meta and making monsters magical. I just got done watching another one of Jarl DM's vids about making it up, and I totally agree 100%. A lot of us who are both DMs and players, and a lot of players that want to quote unquote cheat. They troll through the monster manual. They're looking at things, and when you see a troll, you know it's a troll. You know its weaknesses right off the bat. Uh, so one thing I try to do sometimes is rather than just saying what a monster is right off the bat, I describe it. I describe its features. Sometimes I just completely, totally change the way a monster looks. You know, I replied to a post trying to help off a fellow gamer, a new friend that I've made via the one shot group, who's interested in starting to run games and doesn't necessarily have the monster manual right now. That you could go and to expand your repertoire of creatures, simply reskin the creature. You know, we've fought goblins thousands of times. Goblins are the one of the biggest go-to enemies in any gaming system there is, but you can just reskin a goblin. I made mention of reskinning a goblin in a way where you would have, an elf, an elder elf with just old, dried out, cracked flesh, boils here and there, the skin pulled taut and exposing the shape of the ribs and the striations of its muscles. You know, just having nasty teeth and a glazed over look, hair long, loose, and wild, dry and blowing with the slightest breeze, turning around, looking at you, and smiling, and you can see that there's splatterings of blood across the mouth. That's a simple way of describing an enemy and just using goblin stats because this enemy is maybe not undead, but incredibly weak, and the flesh is desiccated and cannibalistic. And then you could theme that for everything else in your game and just use progressively stronger monster stats, but never use the monster descriptions. That's one of the ways you can mask the meta. What are we facing? I don't know what we're facing. Then as a DM, you just say you're facing a goblin. You know, they get, oh, goblin, pathetic. We should have known. But you just tell them you're facing some sort of, old, insane group of occult or cultish, cannibalistic elves that are eating the lesser species. They start thinking, holy shit, okay, how are we going to deal with this? Rather than, oh, it's a goblin, let's just walk over it. And then later on, you could have that same descriptor for a more powerful enemy and just describe the enemy a little bit better. Maybe the flesh is not as desiccated. Maybe the muscles are a little bit larger and more defined. You can see the striations just pulling, like the bones marionetting this creature, and its hands have thick nails grown over centuries, sharpened down to claws, and it's covered in more bits and bobs, and maybe the teeth of the more powerful version is filed down to points. And it's the same sort of type of descriptor, but instead of using a goblin, maybe you're using a troll, or maybe you're using an ogre, and they don't just know it right off the bat. And that opens the door to experiencing the game rather than just playing it. You play the game, it's like playing a game of Diablo. Diablo's a role playing game, right? Not not the same type, but you build your character, you get your gear, and you go out and you kill stuff. And you start killing stuff, and you start fighting the brown, fallen or whatever, and they die quick. And then you have the blue ones that are a different level of difficulty, and the red ones, and then the goats. And you know exactly how each enemy responds, and you know the scaling of enemies, and you know exactly what you should do. But then you switch that up, and don't even change a stat. Don't change a single solitary stat. Just by reskinning it, it creates a, a easier way of making monsters magical again, and making the game exploratory, an exploratory experience. And it's easy for you as the DM because all you're doing is changing the description. All the rules, all the meta is exactly the same. And giving your players something that they've never faced before, or at least they feel they have never faced before. Now, going a little bit deeper into it, you could do what the RDM was speaking about and switching their resistances around and changing up their descriptors as well and putting a new skin on. You know, that's another great way of rocking monsters. I'm a little bit crazy and I like to use charts and comparative, stats for monsters and rebuild them and build them from the ground up, build them from scratch, and then fit them in. That's one thing that I like doing. I've done several campaigns in my past where every single enemy the players have ever faced was a 100% scratch build. But that's if you're a little nutty and you really, really enjoy being a DM and building creatures and, all that sort of stuff. I have a little bit of an addiction to it. But, you know, you could just keep it simple and use the same stats and just reskin it. And if the reskin requires a little extra flavor, a little extra kick, a little extra ability, or the lack of an extra ability, then just, tack it on or take it off. Just keep it simple, sweet, especially when you're starting out. And it actually makes a pretty big difference. At least I think so. So until next time, peace.